I welcome you to this session of ISO 14001-2015, and today we are going to talk about clause number 8, and under this subclause 8.1, operational planning and control. So as usual, first of all, I'll read out the requirement to you as given in the standard. So clause number 8.1, operational planning and control. The organization shall establish, implement, control, and maintain the processes needed to meet the environmental management system requirements and to implement the actions identified in para 6.1 and 6.2 by, there are 2 points under this, by establishing operational criteria for the processes, and second is by implementing control of processes in accordance with the operational criteria. And there is a note below this which says controls can include engineering controls and procedures. Controls can be implemented following a hierarchy, for example, elimination, substitution, administration, and can be used individually or in combination. The organization shall control planned changes and review the consequences of unintended changes, taking action to mitigate any adverse effects as necessary. The organization shall ensure that outsourced processes are controlled or influenced. The type and extent of control or influence to be applied to the processes can be defined within the environmental management system. Consistent with a life cycle perspective, the organization shall, there are 4 points under this, A. Establish control as appropriate to ensure that its environmental requirements are addressed in the design and development process for the product or service, considering each life cycle stage. And B is determining its environmental requirements for the procurement of products and services as appropriate. And C, communicate its relevant environmental requirement to external providers, including contractors. And D is consider the need to provide information about the potential significant environmental impacts associated with the transportation or delivery, use, end-life treatment, and final disposition of its products and services. And last para says, the organization shall maintain documented information to the extent necessary to have confidence that the processes have been carried out as planned. So this is a slightly longer clause, and let us now discuss the clause in more detail. As the title says, it is pertaining to operation. And the title of the subclause is Operational Planning and Control. So we have to plan out how we are going to control the processes and have procedures so that those procedures can be followed by the people while implementing the products or the services that we are supposed to render to our customers. The organization shall establish, implement, control, and maintain the processes needed to meet the environmental management system requirements. So first of all, we have to ensure that the procedures that we are going to put, we have to ensure that they meet the environmental management system requirements, and we have to implement the actions identified in para 6.1 and 6.2 by establishing operating criteria for the processes. What criteria we have to use for carrying out the processes. So the criteria has to be clear to the people. We have to establish the operating criteria for the processes. That means all processes, including handling, selection of material, then the equipments which are required, the cutting and bending or whatever criteria we use for making the product, and implementing controls of the processes in accordance with the operating criteria. So we have to define what criteria has to be used for making the product, and also the controls of the processes, how we are going to control the process that we are going to carry out for making the product. So, and the controls can include engineering controls and procedures. Controls can be implemented following a hierarchy. For example, we have to maybe eliminate certain risks, or maybe carry out some substitution, or maybe exercise certain administrative controls, and these can be used individually or in combination. So whatever way we put it in the procedure, accordingly it has to be carried out by the operators. So the organization shall control planned changes and review the consequences of unintended changes, taking action to mitigate any adverse effect as necessary. And the organization shall control the planned changes and review the consequences of the unintended changes, which we did not think of, or we did not plan out as such. So the organization shall control the planned changes and review the consequences of unplanned changes, taking action to mitigate any adverse effect as necessary. So if there is any adverse effect because of unplanned changes, then we have to take action so that the adverse effect is minimized as necessary. The organization shall ensure that the outsourced processes are controlled or influenced. We have not only to control the processes which we are carrying out within our organization, but also the outsourced processes have got to be controlled, or they have to be influenced. The type and extent of control or influence can be applied to the processes which are applied to the processes shall be defined within the environmental management system. So whatever controls we are exercising, those controls shall be defined within the environmental management system, which we are going to put in the form of processes or work instructions or whatever we think of. Consistent with the life cycle perspective, the organization shall A, B, C, D, there are 4 points in this. A is establish controls as appropriate to ensure that its environmental requirements are addressed in the design and development process for the product or the services, considering each life cycle stage. So we have to ensure that the design and development process for the product or the services, these are addressed in the environmental, keeping in view the environmental requirements, and these processes have to be appropriate. So we have to establish controls as appropriate to ensure that the environmental requirements are addressed in the design and development process for the product or service, considering each life cycle stage. And B is determine its environmental requirements for the procurement of products and services as appropriate. We have to determine the environmental requirements for the procurement of the products and services as required for making the final product or the rendering of the final service as appropriate. And C is communicate its relevant environmental requirements to external providers including contractors. So we have to make these things clear also by communicating these to the external providers. That means the environmental requirements to be maintained have to be communicated to the external providers, including the contractors which are working for us at site. And D is consider the need to provide information about potential significant environmental impacts associated with the transportation or delivery, use, end of life treatment, and final disposal of its products and services. So we have to consider the entire life cycle of the product and consider the need to provide information about the potential significant environmental impacts which are possible and may be associated with all stages including transportation or delivery, end of life treatment, and final disposal of its products and services. So all these stages have to be thought of, and we have to ensure that we provide the information about the potential significant environmental impacts which may be associated with the transportation or delivery or use or end of life treatment and final disposal of its products and services. The organization shall maintain documented information. See, finally we have to ensure that we maintain all the records which are necessary. So here the documented information pertains to the maintaining the records to the extent necessary to have confidence that the processes have been carried out as planned. So that's all in this clause. I hope you have understood the requirement fully and completely. This is a slightly longer clause, but by any chance if there is any stage at which you are not clear or for the item which is not clear to you within this clause, please give your comment below this procedure so that I can deal with that and discuss with you once again so that things are absolutely clear to you regarding all the requirements contained in this clause. So thank you very much for watching my videos, and if you are liking my videos, please give me a thumbs up, give me a like, and also share my videos with your friends and colleagues so that they can also take advantage of the discussions which take place between us. And please do not forget to subscribe to my channel and also press the bell icon so that as and when I load the video, the information shall reach you well in time so that you are able to see my videos without any delay. So thank you very much, and next Sunday we are meeting again and we shall be discussing clause number 8.2, Emergency Preparedness and Response. That is the title of 8.2. So thank you very much. See you again on next Sunday. Bye-bye.